Hello everyone, I am back with another video. This one is on my biggest fears regarding Ozempic or other GLP-1 agonist drugs being used for weight loss and inadvertently addiction therapy. In my case, I have been using it for weight loss, but I found out that it's dramatically changed my drinking. But I am definitely a neurotic type of person, and so I've had all of these different fears stewing around in my head, and I thought I would just put them out there to maybe spark a discussion and see if other people are in the same boat. So my first one's a little multi-layered. It has to do with running out or going off of Ozempic or potentially switching to another alternative medication. Basically, everybody knows that there's been shortages of these drugs. My number one concern, obviously, and I think everybody should be, is that the people that take this drug therapy for diabetes should absolutely be entitled to get their medication before anybody else takes it for an off-label prescription or whatnot, another treatment of your weight or treatment for addiction, whatnot. People with diabetes should definitely be covered first. They should never be put in a situation where they can't get their medication. I wish that was addressed by these companies before they started doing the off-label prescriptions, but I guess that's not the case. I tried to do a little bit of research, and it does look like Ozempic, at least, is expected to be in short supply through 2024. I haven't had an issue getting it in 2024, so I hope it's more readily available than it was in the past. But I have started to look at switching to some other drugs now that there are GLP-1s that are being designed specifically with the intent of weight loss. Therefore, I feel like it wouldn't impact somebody that has diabetes. But there's, again, so little information. My doctor isn't aware of any of this. I'm the one that's like doing all of the research. And of course, there would be considerations like if you switch to another drug, like Wegovy is prescribed just for weight loss. Is it going to be as effective? Are there different side effects long term? All of that stuff are just big question marks. So I'm doing some research on that to see if that is an appropriate path for me and whether that would be available. Next kind of subcategory is the idea of going off of these drugs, whether purposefully or not, and what the consequences of that are. In the end of 2023, was not able to get a prescription refill of Ozempic, so I went off of it for a couple weeks, and I definitely noticed my appetite come back. I did have like an alcohol relapse, so there is that. That's why I think it's so important that you use these drugs not as a cure, but as part of a multi-pronged approach to treatment. And I wasn't, in regard to eating, I wasn't looking at lifestyle changes. In regard to drinking, I wasn't looking at other methods that I should be incorporating into my life, like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapies, that kind of reframe the way that I look at drinking and therefore affect my behavior in general. So that is something that I would need to put in the forefront as I continue using Ozempic or another drug. But it does bring into question, I don't know if this is just my head working, but when I went back on Ozempic, I wasn't sure that it was as effective as it was the first time I was on it. And again, there's like no information available online that at least I could find about it being less effective if you do go off it and go back on it, and if there's a tolerance or whatnot. So I'm still looking for information on that. If you know anything, please let me know. And then another like kind of subcategory of this, the idea of running out or going off or switching, is these drugs are all saying that you need to be on them basically for the rest of your life. Like it is a forever treatment. And like, of course, that is a really scary idea. Nobody wants to be medicated forever, and we don't know the long-term consequences of using these drugs. So again, it, really highlights the fact that this is just one piece of the puzzle in a long-term solution. It's all about the lifestyle changes. It's all about different cognitive approaches and therapies that all become part of the pie. um, so there's that. And again, we don't know the long-term effects of the drugs, and we also don't understand the long-term effects of being on a very calorie restrictive diet. A lot of times they'll prescribe, like if you have to have surgery, you'll go on a very caloric restrictive diet, but it's short term. So consequences of that, consequences of a lack of nutrients over time, like we have to make sure that every piece of food we do eat is nutrient rich and you're getting all the vitamins and minerals and everything that you need for your body to sustain itself, so that there's not a whole new slew of complications that we have to deal with down the line as a result of taking this one medication, which is often the case with pharmaceuticals. So my second, I kind of touched on this, but my second big fear is the side effects and the unforeseen side effects. So everybody talks about gastrointestinal issues. Everybody talks about the nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. I didn't really have an issue with those because I eat my big issues with food are portion control and carbs. And I think when people have gastrointestinal issues, it's because they are eating high fat, high sugar content. And so I've had a couple issues. I have no idea why balloons just showed up on the screen. I don't know if you guys saw that. Anyway, I didn't have really big gastrointestinal issues. I've had a couple situations where I got sick because I ate too much or something like that, but that's not a big one for me. However, I am more concerned with other side effects associated with these drugs, which are thyroid issues, which my mom has had, and I have to go and get a biopsy on my thyroid. It's happened too recently to me starting these drugs to be a consequence of taking the drugs, but I'm prone to potentially having thyroid issues. So that needs to be monitored. I had pancreatitis when I was 17. That's also a complication of using these medications. My doctor never asked about either of these things. They're not being monitored. So that's a big concern in my head. And then like cosmetically, there's issues like sagging skin, of course. If you lose weight very fast, there's that as a complication, which I guess you can't really do anything about except have like a tummy tuck or surgery, whatnot. So not ideal. And then hair loss is another one. I don't think hair loss is a consequence of the drugs as much as it is having nutrient deficiencies on that super restrictive low calorie diet. But that's just my hypothesis. Again, I am not a medical professional. This is just talking about my own experience, my own ideas. The other one that's really concerning to me is I heard in the news, I think it was like 2 weeks ago now, that there's a person that's suing, I think, Novo Nordisk, Ozempic's manufacturer, because she was on the drug for like 2 years, and she said she ended up having weakened stomach lining or weakened stomach muscles, I guess, maybe from lack of food. And now she's having complications, like she can't eat or process any other kind of food. And she feels like the manufacturer was aware of this and dispensed the drug anyway. So it's interesting to see what will happen in that lawsuit. I'm sure it's going to be the first of many on that topic, as well as other consequences that were, again, unforeseen. We're jumping on this drug so quickly. We don't have the research, the evidence, the studies to really know what's going to happen. So it's a pretty big gamble, which is very scary and why it's one of my biggest fears. And then the last one is the idea of government agencies and corporations blocking production or distribution or approval of these medications because there's such a chance of revenue drop. We know now that these drugs have been caused to affect addictive behavior, including shopping, eating, drinking, gambling, and then there's all of the different agencies and corporations, including healthcare. So if a bunch of people lose a ton of weight and then they don't have health-related healthcare issues, the food companies and restaurants, hospitality industry could be affected, Amazon shopping. My Amazon shopping has gone way down. And then the alcohol industry would lose a ton of money if these drugs are approved for treatment of addiction and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of huge organizations that could stand to really lose a lot of money if these are actually as effective and approved to be widely distributed. So I know it kind of is like edging on a conspiracy theory, but to sort of frame it in rational thinking, we know how the government handled the health-related issues related to smoking in the past, and now we all know that smoking cigarettes is terrible for you and it will kill you. But alcohol companies, so many people die from alcohol or alcohol-related illnesses or injuries, yet alcohol has like the best PR ever. It's sexy and like incredibly socially acceptable despite it being devastating to so many people. So, you know, our government allows these lobbyists to come in and throw around their money and really influence politicians and legislation. And I don't think it's too far-fetched to think that the same thing could happen with limiting approval and distribution of these drugs. So, food for thought. Those are just a few of my neurotic, maybe not so neurotic fears as I'm on this Ozempic journey. Again, I really welcome your feedback. Please let me know your thoughts. Give me ideas for future videos, and let's start a conversation. Okay, everybody, have a great day.